All right. Good morning. It is time for another Foundation Friday. Today, Jen Knox, our managing broker for the Madrona Group, will be presenting on getting buyers committed after January 1st, when all the new laws go into place, and specifically the buyer agency agreement. Jen, take it away.
You. First of all, I wanted to kind of just put this idea in everybody's head while we're talking about this entire class today. Have you ever gone to, show properties to some buyers only to come to find out later that they had a friend in the business who ended up writing up a deal and you just missed out on everything? I'm pretty sure this is something that we've all kind of come across where we're being used as more of a door opener than actually being used for our services. So this idea is going to actually help with that, as well as help us stay compliant to the new laws changing in 2024. So during this Foundation Friday, I do want to make sure we cover all of these things. First, we're going to talk about what we do to do a pre-buyer consultation. We don't want to just jump into, hey, hi, buyer, here's this contract, please sign it. In that pre-buyer consultation, we're going to talk about how we communicate our value, the services that we offer, and basically what sets us apart from all other brokerages, because we're really going to have to sell ourselves, for this to be done. After we get it signed, we want to also make sure that we're continuing communication and overseeing our buyers the whole way through. And then towards the end, I do want to talk about maybe some common objections that you might hear. And of course, no class could possibly be complete from me without going over some of the new laws and the compliance surrounding them. So first, the pre-buyer consultation. So let's talk about what that looks like. Basically, this is your first conversation you're going to have with that buyer. It's your first impression you're going to make. So when you pick up the phone and answer a call for, it could be a lead call, it could be a sign call, it could be somebody that you meet for the first time. We want to make sure that we're immediately kind of giving them something that shows who we are, how professional we are, and the value that we provide. So if you are to make an appointment with somebody in person or even via Zoom, what you want to make sure of is that you never show up empty-handed. These pre-buyer meetings can have, your buyer packet that we have at some of our offices. You could print out a neighborhood report for somebody that you want to do a door knocking with, a welcome gift for somebody that you might be meeting as a buyer for the first time, or just meeting somebody for a cup of coffee. But no matter what, make sure you come with something. And, because we're going to keep thinking back to the rule of reciprocity. So the first part of this, communicating our value. And what I'm going over today is really kind of mirroring the Madrona Group way of doing a sort of a buyer consultation, but I'm also putting together the ideas that has and sort of pivoting it into what we're going to need to also tag on to the back of that, which is going to be getting this broker service agreement actually signed. So I'm going to pull some of the values that the Madrona Group way does buyer consultations and how they communicate value. So first, you want to make sure that you do a basic introduction of yourself. Think about things that will make you relatable, like your family, your interests, community involvement, anything you can do to kind of humanize yourself or connect yourself on a more personal level to the person you're talking to. Find something that you guys have in common. Creating that sort of first rapport or bond is very important. And second, you want to keep this, you don't want to keep it kind of minimal. We don't want to talk about ourselves the whole time we're meeting them, but we do want to get across, the validation of what we can offer. So next, you want to actually validate yourself. So in doing this, we're going to show, our social proof of success, the involvement that you've had with charities. It could be Google reviews. You could lean on the company brand. And then third is heavily leaning on the company brand to sell our services that we have, the resources that you have to your disposal. And, sometimes it also helps to go back to the John L. Scott idea of living life as a contribution. So I just kind of pulled up some ideas about this. And about me, I just grabbed a few photos from my Facebook page. None of these really have anything to do with anything. But, when you're doing a presentation, especially via Zoom, you want to make sure you have some visuals so people can relate. And again, this first part is about just bringing you down as a regular human being who, has interests, being relatable to this person you're speaking with. Second, when you talk about the services, what you want to do is you want to sell your services. Now we have a Madrona group / the John L. Scott Madrona group value proposition. If you need to go ahead and lean on that, it is on the madronagroup.com. And all of these resources are under the buyer presentation tab. But when you sell your services, the services you're selling are how good you are at communicating, or the fact that you work with a team. Now, we all actually do work with a team. Even if you don't directly have transaction coordination or listing coordination, you still have a humongous team of support. We have resources on the Madrona Group's website. That is your support system to help succeed. And by you succeeding, your buyers succeed. You can use your off-market access. As an agent, we can find homes that are on and off market. We can find expireds. We can find canceled listings. And, once signed with the buyer's agency agreement, we're going to also be able to maybe do some off-market prospecting if there's neighborhoods that our clients want to be in. If you have a negotiation certification, or if you are even if you feel like you have good negotiation skills, you can kind of play up the fact that you work with other brokers. Kind of goes hand in hand with this fostering relationship with other brokers. So we work with other brokers all the time. We communicate well between each other. And in doing so, it allows us to have very good negotiation skills. If you have the certification behind the negotiation, feel free to go ahead and send that out there to them as well. Let them know that you've gone through these courses. It just kind of solidifies your qualifications to them. Showing how you work well with others is always a good idea. Letting them know that you have a win-win way of thinking. Any of these things you can use. These are really just examples of how you can sell yourself. So think about what your personal strengths are. Social proof would be things such as Google reviews. Sometimes, the certified negotiation specialist, any awards that you may have won, anything that just kind of is that sort of not just your opinion and not just somebody saying something, but the validation of a third party saying the same thing, or even a fourth or fifth person. So bringing these ideas of, hey, it's not just me claiming to be the best of the best. These people also really enjoyed the way I work with. And then our team. And everybody can use this diagram of our team. We have a strong team of leaders. We have the support system of everybody who helps the leaders. And, we have everybody on this page is somebody that you can use as an example of your support system. Second, I really think it's important to know your competition. So if you know that you are working with a potential buyer who has also spoken to an agent with a company that you're familiar with, you can at least know, what that person is trying to offer to this person. You really need to know what you're up against in order to know how to sell yourself. You can't speak about, these benefits that you offer and all this support that you have and all the skills that you have if it actually doesn't set you apart from who you're competing against. So know who you're competing, know who your competition is. It might just be yourself. It might just be the fact that that buyer has hesitations, but know what you have to sell yourself to. And then, of course, always use the resources that we have available on our company website. There is so much here that we can pull to kind of help build what this pre-buying presentation looks like. All right. So you've met this buyer. You've sold yourself on how great you are. You've told them how great our support system is. You've kind of sold the company. So moving past that point, the next thing we want to make sure of is that they know that you're going to take care of them and that you're going to listen to them. So you want to put their needs first. First will be the discovery period of finding out what their wants and needs actually are. Now, I would definitely suggest if you don't have a system to collect this information, print something out from Canva, find something from Bear Printing, find something in PowerPoint, however you do your presentation, to make sure that you can kind of categorize these things, because every part of our presentation reflects on our professionalism and it reflects on our quality as agents. So what you want to make sure you take care of in this discovery phase is maybe their must-haves versus their wants, and try to find out why. Doing this, you might have somebody who says, I really, really, really want a 4-bedroom house. But when it comes down to it, they would have accepted a 3-bedroom. And why? Because they really only have 2 kids. So finding out this information will help us in doing a home search. You can just put in a regular home search that's really generic. Everything between, $700 to $1 million in this general area. But if you keep sending them things that don't meet what they want, they're going to feel like you're not listening. So make sure you find out as much as possible so you can potentially maybe set them up for the market watch or for new listings to be notified to them. But when something specific comes on the market that does meet these needs and you know why, you can send them things individually outside of that automatic email. So they see that I'm not only going to be sending you everything, I'm sending you things that made me think of you. It puts the personal touch back in. It lets them just feel, again, like you actually do care about what I have to say. You're not just sending me a bunch of stuff. Keep in mind, too, we are in a time in our business where we may not be the first place that somebody sees a home. The internet has homes all over it, so many websites. So it's not just us that's giving our clients information about homes. This can't be the one thing that we use to show our value in our industry. This is just a part of it. So let's not just set them up for a generic home search, but let's make sure that when we're doing this, we're giving them that personal touch that they can't get from signing up from Zillow or some sort of other app. When you're done collecting the wants and needs, it's always a good idea to just confirm your understanding of what they want and why they want it. So, this would be a great time to say, okay, you told me that you were looking for 4-bedroom, but at very least it has to have 3. And, with the backyard, you say you want a large backyard. Are you both on the same page as far as what that means? Just confirm. So when you send them things, you can refer back to your conversation and they have this understanding that you actually do know what they want. After you've decided their wants and needs, you're going to want to explain the buying process. This is kind of one of the main reasons of having this pre-buyer consultation. We have buyers that call us and they just expect to be let in a home, but have no idea that that's really not step 1. So getting them used to and aware of what some of these steps are in order to purchase a home is going to just help them be ready when the time comes that they find something. In this time frame, you just want to give them kind of a general idea of what to expect. You can go through the steps of the home buying process itself. This is really going to be on an independently decided level, because not every buyer is going to be ready for this entire conversation of start to or contract to close. But we do want to let them know somehow that we are not going to leave them as soon as they find a home. Our job and our value actually starts when the contract is accepted. We can't put all of our value into the fact that we are a home search engine. We are actually licensed for we have a limited license to practice law that a lot of other people don't have. And we are valuable for that reason. We are negotiators. We are contract specialists in our own way. You know, we have this knowledge that we bring them through start to finish. And we are also what they call the rock in the river, right? We are the ones that are keeping everything steady and we are keeping everything calm. Even if stuff all around the transaction isn't going smoothly, we are the ones that are going to level it out. And because we are good communicators and negotiators, we're going to get them to a smooth closing where they can celebrate and enjoy that. We do want to talk to them also about partnering with a lender. And if this is a conversation that they've already had, you know, you're going to change the way you talk about this. But if they haven't started anything, you may consider getting them on maybe a three-way chat with a lender as soon as possible. Preparing them to purchase is an important part of making sure that they have all their ducks in a row. As we all know, we don't want to start showing houses if they're not qualified. We could be just setting them up for complete disappointment. And then the detriment to that is if you don't properly prepare your clients and then start showing them, they're going to see that as a weakness on you. So don't let that affect you. Let's get them prepared the way they should be. So when you finish your conversation about lending, you want to make sure they immediately contact that lender partner, get that conversation started, and of course, be pre-approved before you guys start looking at houses. All right, well, keeping your buyers close. How do we do this? We don't want to overwhelm them. There is so much that we could be telling them during this first, during the first 2 or 3 times we meet them. We do not want to fire hose this information out. And because we're going to have these agreements signed with every person that we show homes to, we're going to be really gentle how we work it into these conversations, because it's incredibly overwhelming to meet somebody for the first time and then be asked to sign a contract of commitment. So we want to make sure that when we are working with them, and especially during this pre-buying phase, when we maybe have just had either a phone conversation or maybe a first meeting with no other real estate services being offered, that we are finding ways to continue our conversation. We need to make sure that we are offering more than information on a personal level outside of our automatic search, like I said before. So giving them reasons to reach out and say, thank you for sending me that listing. Oh, that doesn't work for me. These are great conversation starters. Broker service agreements. So this is the part that I'm sure a lot of people here, a lot of agents are a little nervous about. But if you think about the process of which this comes, this should be coming after you've given your buyer their pre-buying presentation, right? We've already been able to talk to them about the value that we offer and who we are as people. And at this point, they should have a general idea that we might be a great person to work with, you know. So this isn't going to be your cold start. We're not going to start here at broker service agreement. We're going to work them into this. They're, like I said, at this point, they're going to know who you are. So the conversation surrounding this should flow naturally after you've had a chance to kind of show who you are and sell yourself. I don't know how long it typically takes for that pre-buying presentation. What I would probably suggest, since we have to kind of get these both covered, is make it impactful, but don't make it lengthy. All right, so we're going to have this broker service agreement, and in a future class, I'm going to talk about how to fill it out. There's quite a few, you know, pages and rules, but in general, this is page 1 of the Form 41 broker service agreement. John L. Scott actually also has an internal form that they'll be putting out at the same time. It's going to cover the same legal requirements. It'll be written in a little bit easier terms to follow, and it will still have that chart of here are the services that we offer to you. So depending on your comfortability between a statewide form versus the company form, they say the same things. It's just going to, you're gonna have to decide which one works for you. Both of them, since they meet those requirements, are going to conform to the rules that start January 1st of 24. The agency law pamphlet. The pamphlet still needs to be handed out with each person you talk to. We need not just the form, but also the pamphlet. One does not replace the other. So this is just a reminder to make sure you're still handing out the pamphlet. And once you've met them in person, again, for this pre-buying and presentation, we're going to have the conversation about the broker service agreement. All right. So again, it's laid out in a way that you would have a normal conversation. The John L. Scott one is also laid out in a similar way. I'm not going through it in detail, but I just wanted to pull it up because one of the first bullet points is talking about the pamphlet and the representation. And the whole idea behind this, the broker service agreement, they're calling it, is to have transparency. Now, this is not just transparency with compensation, but it's actually also transparency of broker relationships. If you had met a seller and you had that conversation with the seller about some really sensitive information, and then the seller chose not to use you as their listing broker, that was a situation where you wouldn't necessarily have to keep that information confidential because you had no broker relationship. So the things that are changing is when you write up an agreement, there is no longer going to be an assumed relationship. We're not going to assume the buyer is yours because there's nothing else written. You're just going to have proof that you either represent buyer or you represent seller. Now, aside from what numbers to put in where and how long to make these agreements, I know there's going to be objections that come out. In fact, I talked to a few non-realtors over the last week, and I said, how would you feel if you were approached with this? Here's what our new law says we have to do. And as a consumer, how would you react if I told you, I'm not going to show you a house unless you sign a contract with me? Or something to that effect. What would your concerns be as a consumer? Because we're realtors. We have our own set of, our own set of personal objections, not necessarily objections. I don't want to call them objections, but, mind blocks. Like, how are we going to explain this? And how am I going to say this in a way that doesn't offend somebody or make it sound like, I need to, I can't do anything for them. And we are so hungry in our industry right now because not a lot of sales are happening for a lot of agents. Some people are doing fantastic, but there are a lot of agents who this is kind of a lower year than normal. So we don't want business to just walk away. So let's talk about some objections that maybe some buyers might have in what's to come. So the first objection that I heard was, I don't really want to commit. Like, I don't mind you showing me a house and I think you're great, but I don't really want to commit. So I'm calling that contract cold feet. I don't want to sign this big long thing. Signing something in general can be incredibly intimidating. And, nobody goes into like a car lot and signs a contract just so they can drive away. I mean, sometimes they do. Sometimes people have them sign things. But one of the ways that we can overcome this is, and these are not exact scripts, but these are just ideas of how you can be thinking about problem solving these objections. Number one, I understand the idea of signing a contract can seem intimidating. This step is required in our industry to create transparency in how we work and how we get paid. It's a short-term commitment, so we can agree together on how long that looks. That will leave you open to either get a an exclusive listing agreement signed, or, you know, potentially non-exclusive. I would try to stay away from non-exclusive if at all possible. I mean, if you can't, we can talk more about what that looks like. Option two, if that doesn't seem to work for you, you could say something like, if you would rather, I can write up a contract for each home that we tour. And if you think we are a good fit to work together, we can modify that agreement to cover a larger area for a longer period. And then if you still can't find yourself comfortable with how to respond to either of those, it's just required by law. The second sort of objection I heard from non-agents when I asked was, I already have an agent. This might be something that more applies when you have a sign call or a lead call. But for those who already have an agent, oh, great. Have you signed a broker service agreement with them? Find out if it's either non-exclusive or exclusive. If they say yes, then if they say no, you can say, you know, I'm happy to show you the home, but we will need to sign this broker service agreement to do so. If I write this one home, so if you write a contract for this home, if I write the contract for the broker service agreement for the home, this would mean that I would be the representing agent that you would use to buy this. If that is something is that something you're interested in me doing? Yes or no? Yes, sign it. No, then maybe you should suggest they contact their current agent if they're that attached. Don't leave yourself out there to be a door opener. And then the third objection I heard from a non-agent was, I can't afford to bring money to the table to pay you. You know, my response to that is, and we have to be really careful about how we say this. We cannot say anything that implies the seller is responsible for paying it. So we can say something like, in our industry, many sellers are still offering buyer broker compensation. This means you likely won't have to come to the table with extra to cover the compensation. This agreement does also give me the right to negotiate that into the sale of a home that we may find that does not offer compensation, like a for sale by owner. You also have complete control to decide which homes you want to see because this compensation is completely transparent. The point you want to make sure that you get across with this objection is the transparency. And you can also let them know that it is listed on the Northwest MLS for the public to see, and they would never go into a transaction not knowing this ahead of time. All right, so the new laws and compliance surrounding this idea. The new law takes effect January 1st, 2024. And it says, as of January 1st, 2024, the firm will not receive compensation of any kind without the buyer broker service agreement signed and on file. This law is regulated, like Jason said, by DOL audits. So you can probably bet that over the next 12 months, the DOL may be knocking on the door trying to audit this. A broker service agreement will be required for any sale closing in 2024. If you have a contract right now that has a closing date of next year, you will be required to put that in the file. A broker service agreement will be required for every single transaction, and there are no exceptions. Without that form, you will not be paid. So if you have, like I said, I'm going to go back to this broker service for any 2024 sale. If you have a sale closing after January 1st, you can update a broker service agreement January 1st with the new form, and that will be fine. There's going to be a little bit of cushion for the transition of this law in that sense. There will not be cushion for the fact that you still can't receive the payment if the broker agreement is not there. We can also have buyer service agreements, or what is currently our buyer agency agreements, signed right now and put in the file for those. It is definitely suggested that you update it come 2024. I have been doing as much research as I possibly can. And if this answer changes, I will definitely let everybody know that it's changed. But the answers, the questions I had were, if we have a broker service agreement right now, do we need to re-sign something later, even if we're mid-contract? The answers are a little bit kind of hit and miss on this. In general, you should be updating these agreements. If it is not done, it shouldn't be the end of the world, because you still do have that agency agreement saying that you do represent that broker, or sorry, that buyer. All right, to getting over your own fears. So this is now the new normal. A lot of consumers out there don't really know any different than what we tell them, okay? They know normal as what it is. The people who have been home buyers over the last, 2 years, this is a normal thing. Over the last 2 years, if you just started being a home buyer, this is a normal thing. As of January 2024, we want to give this feeling of normalcy for what this is. We want to just use, in the words of Buffini, this is not unusual. This is normal practice. This is common. This is customary. This is what it is, okay? They are only going to know basically what we tell them to know. I would love to know what the brokers are afraid of. I know that deep down inside, we're all a little bit nervous. And I think the nerve comes not necessarily from the fact that we're going to do this, but how are we going to say it in a way that sounds attractive? And that's what we're going to be practicing over and over and over for the next 3 weeks. In role play, in Foundation Friday Q&As. And individually, if you want to reach out to anybody here, I am very happy to have a conversation of how I would maybe receive something that you're trying to say as a consumer, or even to tell you what I would probably say to handle the objection. You have a lot of support team that's out here to help handle your hesitations. So don't make your hesitations the buyer's hesitations. We don't want to put that fear out there when it's most likely they don't think of things the way we do. To summarize our entire Foundation Friday, don't panic. Nothing has actually changed. We're still going to be the same realtors that we had before. Buyers are still going to need us because, like I said, our value doesn't come from finding the home. It comes from after mutual acceptance and navigating that transaction. So make sure that we are clearly stating why they should use us, selling ourselves apart from our competition, and making sure that we are showing them what we truly have to offer. Thank you very much for listening.